Hello guys, welcome to another session. So here we will be talking about Marxist sociology from your paper 2. So paper 1 we have already covered Karl Marx and we discussed all the theories. Paper 2 also we have discussed A.R. Desai and all other Marxists also, and we discussed the concepts and theories and everything. This is a revision session, so consider it in that way. So I'm presuming that you have already attended the class either here or some other places and then take it as a revision session. If not, I have given the PDF of actual lecture in the description. You can check out that and that's free of cost. Okay, so guys, let's get started. And what all things I'll discuss is quickly I'll go for it, and there's a revision session. So I will not be able to discuss it completely. We'll look at overview of Marxist sociology. We'll look at the relevance also, and then we'll see history and sociology. We'll look at dialectical materialism. We'll look at economic basis of social institutions. So these are what you need to write when you get a question. This is a core concept of Marxist sociology. And then we'll look at the historical analysis, dialectical examination, empirical application, that the methodology which is used in Marxist sociology. And then we can look at A.R. Desai's contribution on caste, on feudalism, nationalism, contemporary policies. I'll give you one-liners of each of these. We already discussed this and you need to develop on that. And then we can also discuss about Ranjit Guha and subaltern studies, right? Binary relationship, critique of elitism, relevance of subaltern studies, and then other critiques like caste class nexus, and then D.P. Mukherjee, the colonial disruption, and all those. We have done enough and more discussions. So I'm assuming that you won't be facing any problem. And the key thinkers when it comes to the Indian Marxist sociology that you can discuss is D.P. Mukherjee, Kathleen Gough, and then A.R. Desai, of course. And then the criticism, like overemphasis on economic determinism, neglect of cultural, regional variations, lack of viable alternatives, overgeneralization, right? So this is what we are going to discuss. So I hope this is already known to you. So let's quickly go through it. So Marxist sociology, we'll look for a critical analysis here. So here we will try to bring in all the Indian thinkers, okay? So see guys, if you get a question, Marxist sociology in India, a critical analysis, okay? So Marxist sociology, you can start like this. It emerges as a powerful theoretical framework to understand society by focusing on dynamics of class struggle, historical materialism, and the economic base of social institutions. The same introduction is what I've given to you already. Now, unlike Indology, mention about Indology, which primarily examine Indian society through cultural and religious text or structural functionalism, which often upholds the status quo. That is one of the criticism, right? And trying to see the functions only. Marxist sociology seek to uncover the process of development and change through historical and dialectical analysis. So it views society as a complex web of economic and social relations shaped by the historical interplay of power, class, and resources. So Indian sociologists now, like A.R. Desai, D.P. Mukherjee, R.K. Mukherjee, have applied the Marxist sociology to criticize Indian society, and that's offering fresh insight into caste, class, feudalism, nationalism, etc. So this is what we need to start. This is how you need to start as an introduction. So now we can discuss the core concepts and applications and contributions and critique and everything. So this is how you need to proceed with. I hope you got a clarity on how you're going to write the introduction. Now, I hope you know 1917, though it started after Russian Revolution, till independence it was there. And then post-independence, welfare state established, so welfare programs and other things. So there is no scope for Marxist perspective at that point of time in the Indian context. And, the structural functionalism was more prominent because you need to have a realistic understanding of Indian society to implement the plans and policies like land reform, etc. But by 1970s, because of the failures of this welfare state and the programs and its implementations and a lot of other issues, inequalities and poverty and everything, again, Marxist perspective become relevant. So that's the context which you can again write. Now, let's talk about the interdependent relation. Let's talk about history and sociology first. Okay, that one of the core concept of Marxist sociology. See, the Marxists reject the rigid distinction made by scholars like Radcliffe Brown between history, that is idiographic, focusing on unique facts, etc., and sociology as normothetic, dealing with the generalized fact, right? So there is a distinction which has been made. I think you have seen this question also before. Why I quickly discuss because idiographic and normothetic approaches we have already covered in previous session. So history is considered as idiographic, which is related to unique facts, and sociology is normothetic, which is about generalized facts. According to Marxists, history is the lifeline of society, and social structures cannot be understood without historical analysis. And sociology and history are interdependent. historical processes shape social institutions and vice versa. This exactly, if you remember, what I have given to you when we discussed about the comparison between history and sociology. So this is something which you got from, you can write about Redcliffe Brown and the Marxist approach also. On one side, you consider it as idiographic, on the other side, you consider it as nomothetic, which is generalized fact. Without history, there is no sociology. In fact, there is a question, history without sociology is rootless, and sociology without history is toothless, right? So that link you can mention. For instance, Marx's concept of historical materialism. What is it? It's all about, if you see that, emphasizing how modes of production like feudalism, capitalism evolved through historical dialectics, and that shaping the society's economic, political, and cultural structures. So that's these things you can, this is the core of Marxist sociology. So then coming to dialectical materialism, I've given you Engel, how it is codified, and the three principles of dialectical materialism. At the heart of Marxist sociology lies this concept of dialectical materialism. So societies overlap through contradictions between opposing forces, and such when we talk about capitalist society, bourgeois proletariat. When you talk about ancient society, masters and slaves. When we talk about feudal society, the lords and serfs. So there are contradictions, and the overcoming of contradictions is what you see in each of these stages. And these contradictions lead to class struggle, which drive the social change. So unlike Indological perspective, which focus on cultural continuities, or structural functionalism, which upholds the equilibrium of society, Marxist sociology views conflict as the engine of progress, and the change is revolutionary. But in functionalism, when you talk about structural functionalism, it is talking about the temporary abnormalities before it come back to the equilibrium. There can be temporary change, which is the abnormality. And this approach, in fact, allow a critical understanding of how capitalism perpetuates inequality while creating conditions for its own transformation. Now, if you look at the economic basis of social institution, that angle, see, Marxist sociology assert that the economic base, that's the mode of production, which determine the superstructure, which related to culture, politics, education, religion, and everything, family. So we have an economic infrastructure and a superstructure. Economic infrastructure is actually the production, the mode of production when we talk about, right? And then the superstructure. So economic infrastructure decides everything that is related to superstructure, and superstructure in turn help in the functioning of this. So social institutions are shaped by the dominant economic relations or the economic infrastructure, and their role is basically to help in the functioning, or is like to reproduce and legitimize the existing power structure. For example, the caste system in India, according to A.R. Desai, if you talk about it. In paper one, I have given a lot of example for this, how economic infrastructure shape the superstructure, and in turn will help in the functioning of economic infrastructure, right? So caste system in India, according to A.R. Desai, emerged as economic structure under Aryan dominance, with Brahmins institutionalizing the stratification through texts like, Rig Veda. Now, coming to the methodology of Marxist sociology, guys, here I don't want to spend too much of time direct, and I have given enough for this. So if you look at the Marxist methodology, it involves historical analysis, dialectical examination, empirical application. So historical analysis means collecting historical data to trace the evolution of social institutions and structures. Dialectical examination, analyzing the contradictions within society to understand its development. Empirical application means applying the historical and dialectical methods to real world phenomena like agrarian class structure. You can see Daniel Thornow's work, we discussed that. Or you can see caste class nexus, Kathleen Gov studies. Right? So these are empirical application. Now we can talk about applications of Marxist sociology in Indian society. So we discussed a core concept. Now let's talk about A.R. Desai's critique on Indian society. See, guys, we discussed on caste, we discussed on feudalism, we discussed on nationalism, we discussed on contemporary politics and policies also. So we need to, each of these are potential 10 markers. But I'll give you a couple of points here, but look at the PDF, look at the class which is given to you, and cover everything. So on caste, what is the argument of Desai? Caste originated within, with the Aryan invasion, which disrupted the primitive mode of production. And indigenous populations were segregated and subjugated with rigid occupational roles imposed by Brahmins to maintain the economic control. So this economic foundation of caste challenges the Indological perspective that view caste as a purely cultural phenomenon. Right? So elaborate on that, give examples and everything that I have given to you. Coming to feudalism, how Indian feudalism is different from European feudalism. It was in fact imposed from above by emperors or colonizers, Unlike European feudalism, which emerged from below, so it is here in from above. So peasants had no land ownership and were forced to pay rents in the form of taxes and services. So Desai highlighted the laws of political and economic freedom under feudalism, which persisted until the advent of capitalism during the colonial rule. Now, coming to nationalism, what is a criticism? He criticized the nationalist historians for romanticizing for the Indian national movement, and he argued that the Indian national movement was led by the emerging bourgeois who mobilized the masses to secure political power from British while preserving class inequalities. And then, if you see, Gandhi and Nehru adopted the populist policies to garner support, but failed to address the economic and political disparities. Contemporary policies, if you see, guys, these are all separate. Four questions is what I'm discussing in this four lines. Okay. So if you see, Desai viewed policies like land reforms, reservations as tool of false consciousness. These words at least should be there in your answer, which is designed to maintain elite dominance by fragmenting marginalized groups and preventing true class consciousness. Okay, now let's also talk about contributions of Ranjit Guha and the subaltern studies. See, Ranjit Guha's subaltern sociology that shifted the focus from elites to marginalized groups such as the peasants, the tribes, and during the colonial India. So the key idea, if you see, that's related to binary relationship and then the critique of elitism. So the subaltern studies analyze the interplay of dominance and subordination, which is focusing on resistance movements, which is overlooked by the elitist, historiography. And then Guha also argued that the mainstream history portrays nationalism as the achievement of elite leaders and ignoring the grassroots struggles. So that's a critique of elitism. Again, what's the relevance of subaltern studies? That also you can expect a question. These all are short notes, guys. Subaltern whatever I discuss in these points, these all are short notes. So everything need to be discussed in 150 words, but I'm discussing hardly in 15, 20 words. So understand that and make your preparation accordingly. I just want to cover each of these points so that that you won't be missing out on anything. Okay, because all these are covered in the actual classes, so you can consider taking the course also. That details are given in the description, or at least the PDF you can go through. That's free of cost also. Again, see, subaltern studies, in fact, emphasize the agency of marginalized groups, and that's challenging the hegemonic narratives. For instance, peasant uprising and tribal movements that reveal how resistance shaped Indian history. Now, the criticism. See, Dibesh Chakravarti argued that the subaltern studies cannot fully escape, Eurocentric frameworks. Vivek Chibber criticized its neglect of, class exploitation and overemphasis on cultural hegemony. Okay, now who are the key thinkers in Indian Marxist sociology? If you see, D.P. Mukherjee. In fact, Mukherjee combined Marxist and cultural perspective and emphasizing on, the dialectics of Indian history and society. That is a Marxological approach. And he also emphasized how colonialism disrupted traditional economic system and created a semi-feudal, semi-capitalist structure. So when we talk about mode of production in Indian agriculture, we talk about the semi-feudal, semi-capitalist structure by D.P. Mukherjee. Kathleen Gough is very important. See, we have a lot of areas where we need to talk about Kathleen Gough, and in fact explore the nexus between caste and class. So, and showing how economic power reinforced caste hierarchies in rural India. Desai, of course, analyzed caste, feudalism, nationalism. That remains foundational, his analysis of all these. And his critique of Indian national movement as a bourgeois movement highlight the role of economic history in shaping social and political structures. What are the criticisms? These are again general, what you've seen in paper one, whatever we discussed in A.R. Desai, the same, overemphasis on economic determinism. If you see scholars like Andre Bethe argue that Marxist sociology exaggerate the role of economic history, ignoring other dimensions like caste, religion, and political mobility. And the neglect of cultural and regional variations. Gail Onward criticized Marxist theories for failing to address a unique oppression faced by the Dalits and other marginalized groups. And then lack of viable alternatives. Yogendra Singh noted that Marxist theories often focus on critique without offering actionable solutions for social change. Then overgeneralization. Critics also argue that the Marxist sociology oversimplifies complex social realities by viewing society through the lens of binary class struggles. Okay, now, so what is the conclusion? See, guys, Marxist sociology provides a compelling framework to analyze the Indian society by highlighting the historical and economic roots of inequality and social change. Can talk about thinkers like A.R. Desai, Ranjit Guha have expanded this tradition, criticizing dominant narratives which was existing and uncovering the agency of marginalized groups. But still, the approach is not without its limitation. So, what the critics pointing out, it's economic determinism, neglect of cultural variations, and oversimplification of social realities. And you cannot study Indian society only from the lens of class. It is, having a lot of cultural elements, religion, caste, and all these will play important role. So now relevance. Despite these critiques, Marxist sociology remain a vital tool for understanding the interplay of caste, class, and power in shaping society. It challenges us to look beyond the surface level explanation and examine the historical and structural forces that drive the social change. So through its dialectical approach, the dialectical approach that we have seen, and the historical analysis, Marxist sociology continue to inspire critical and also try this critical engagement with the complexities of Indian society. So that's how you can talk about the relevance also. So guys, this is going to be a very good answer if you can incorporate all these elements. So here what I did is I have generalized Marxist sociology and I went for a critical analysis of Marxist sociology. I have never gone specific to any topic, or you can get specific question on Desai, you can get specific question on Guha or anyone. You can get specific question within Desai on caste, on religion, on nationalism, right? So again, you need to prepare very well. So if you find the video helpful and if you think that it can help your friend, also share it with your friend who's preparing with sociology. And you can check out the details in the description if you are looking for any mentorship or test series of the courses. And the PDF is available free of cost. You can take that also. See you guys. Thank you. And then thank you so much. See you in the next session.